Let's talk about the ADU bonus program. So the ADU bonus program is basically an incentive for developers to build more ADUs, to install more housing throughout the city of San Diego. The ADU bonus program is unique to the city of San Diego. So basically the city took what the state required in terms of ADUs and built upon it. And since it's not part of the state requirements, the city of San Diego can modify it in any way they want, completely separate of the state's requirements for ADUs. So in a nutshell, the way the ADU bonus program works is if you're in the RS zone, single family zoning, you can build one ADU. If you're in the RM zoning, multifamily zoning, you can build two ADUs. Now that comes from the state regulations, so the ADU bonus program does not modify that, but the ADU bonus program kicks in after those initial state ADUs. So if you wanted to use the ADU bonus program on any projects, you would need to be in the sustainable development area, which is an area 1 mile walking distance to mass transit. And if you are in this area, you qualify for the full ADU bonus program. So let's say you're in an RM zone and you have two ADUs. Well, now you can continue to build ADUs as long as every other ADU is rented at an affordable level. So you can build an affordable ADU, and then you would get a market rate ADU, affordable ADU, market rate ADU, affordable ADU, market rate ADU, affordable market rate. And basically you can continue to do that until you reach your max floor area ratio. The ADU bonus program does not allow you to reduce your setbacks beyond what a typical ADU would have, which is a 4-foot rear setback, a 4-foot interior side setback, and then generally it's going to be your base zone front yard setback. Now, the ADU bonus program has been controversial because you can use this in the single family zone. So you can result in a 10 or 20 or 30 unit ADU apartment in a single family zone. And it seems like some developers were abusing this. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should necessarily do it. Oftentimes these projects come without parking as well. And the parking is regulated completely independent of the ADU bonus program. The other thing that I should mention about the ADU bonus program is if you do end up building a multi-family structure where you have 3 or more units in one structure, you're going to be designing this based on the California Building Code, which is going to trigger fire separation distances, ADA compliance, full fire sprinklers, and it's going to become a bigger project. So it really doesn't look anything like an ADU project you would expect. I think that's one of the reasons why the program has been so controversial. So today we're going to be reviewing the proposed changes to this ADU bonus program, and we're going to discuss if these are reasonable changes or if these changes will have a negative impact throughout the city of San Diego. Item 14, ADU home density bonus applicability. This change is going to be really significant here. What they're going to do, they're proposing to change the zoning where you can do the ADU density bonus program. So this change will prohibit the application of the ADU home density bonus program in the following very low density residential zones: RS11, RS12, RS13, RS14, RS18, RS19, RS110, and RS111. So those are low density single family zones. But one of the things you probably noticed is this does not include RS15, RS16, and RS17. And RS17 is the most common single family zoning throughout the city of San Diego. In fact, RS17 accounts for 91% of the projects built with the ADU density program throughout the city of San Diego, according to the statistics that they're giving us in this report right here. I think this is a reasonable way to apply the code. People do not want high density multifamily projects in low density single family zones. So I like the way this is being implemented. What I am curious about is how well this is going to be received, considering that 91% of the use of this program is still going to be permitted in one of these zones. Additionally, 3% is in the RS16, so basically 94% of the ADU bonus program would not be affected by this. And how will City Council and the general public react to a code change that basically only affects 6% of the projects? Well, I'm not really sure about that, but in general, I will say I think this is a good change that should satisfy at least some of the people. Item 5, ADU home density bonus evacuation routes. I think this is a good one. I think this is one of the better changes in this entire document, and I think this is also a direct correlation of how fire safety is going to be implemented in the city of San Diego while we're trying to add density as a result of what happened in Los Angeles. So what this change is proposing here is that if your project is located in a high fire hazard zone or a very high fire hazard severity zone, well, you're going to need at least 2 evacuation routes from that site before you would qualify for the ADU bonus program. So this is basically going to disqualify any lot that's on a dead end or a cul-de-sac because you would only have 1 evacuation route. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially since some of these projects really took advantage of the program, adding 30 units in a cul-de-sac. So this is one I would agree with. I think this is ultimately going to improve the fire safety of the city of San Diego, and I don't think there's too many people out there that would oppose this change. Item 16, ADU home density bonus development scale. This is a change that is directly related to canyon lots or large lots where there's a small buildable area, but the majority of the lot kind of descends down a canyon or up a hillside that would generally be undevelopable areas. And basically, as an architect, these are lots where you can have a higher FAR because there's a higher lot area. So if you have an FAR of 1.0 and you have 20,000 square feet of lot area, well, you could build a 20,000 square foot structure on that lot, even though most of the lot is actually undevelopable. When you apply that to the ADU bonus program, that could result in a 20,000 square foot multifamily ADU apartment complex. So what this is saying is it's going to cap the maximum buildable area at 10,000 square feet. So if you did happen to be in an area with an FAR of 1 on a 20,000 square foot lot, you would actually only be able to build 10,000 square feet. If you use the ADU bonus program, you could still build the 20,000 square foot home. But if you use the ADU bonus program, you're going to be limited to 10,000 square feet. And then there's another caveat here, which is interesting. I'm not so sure it makes a huge difference. But if some of that lot contains environmentally sensitive land, which you're generally going to see around hillsides and canyons, you cannot use that lot area to calculate your floor area ratio. So ultimately, what does this mean? Well, it means a lot of these canyon lots are no longer going to be viable lots for the ADU bonus program if you're looking to go giants with the ADU bonus program. It's also going to discourage people to build around environmentally sensitive land, which is probably a good thing. And in general, it'll congregate the ADU bonus program buildings to areas that are just not around environmentally sensitive land, and it's going to limit them to a maximum of 10,000 square feet. So ultimately, I would say this is a good, sensible change. Item 17, ADU home density bonus, required automatic fire sprinkler system. Okay, this is an interesting one. I think it makes sense in most scenarios. Maybe in some scenarios it doesn't. Let's talk about it. What this is saying right here is if you're going to use the ADU home density bonus program, since it's not required by the state, the city of San Diego is going to require fire sprinklers. So if you recall, the state cannot require fire sprinklers if the existing dwelling unit does not have fire sprinklers. But when you're using this ADU home density bonus program, you're opting in to a program that's at the city level, and the city is now going to say, if you use this program, you need fire sprinklers. Now, in most scenarios, using the ADU bonus program, you're going to be building an R2 occupancy building anyway, which is going to trigger fire sprinklers per the California Building Code. But if you were being a little bit more conservative and building a series of detached ADUs rather than putting them all together, before this is implemented, you would not trigger fire sprinklers. Now you're going to trigger fire sprinklers. Ultimately, this is probably a good idea if you're going to have lots of ADUs on one property, even if they're detached. Fire sprinklers probably mitigate some of the risk. It does increase the cost, and the goal of the ADUs is to get more units without increasing the cost. But like I said, this is an opt-in citywide program, and the city has the right to do this. All in all, I would say this increases fire safety throughout the city of San Diego. I think it's acceptable. We've designed ADU bonus programs opting into the fire sprinklers, and I think it's a good idea. Item 18, ADU home density bonus, parking. Parking somehow became the hot button topic throughout development in the city of San Diego. You would think something so boring wouldn't have so many implications on projects and housing around the city, but here we are. Parking is a major issue, especially in areas where there's just no street parking. So what this proposed change is saying is that if you're outside of the transit priority area and you use the ADU bonus program, you're going to need to have one off-street parking space for each affordable ADU home and bonus ADU home. Let's discuss what kind of implications this has. So if you're doing an ADU bonus program where you're going to have 10 units, maybe 5 are affordable, 5 are market rate, well, now you need to have 10 off-street parking spaces. In a lot of scenarios, this is almost impossible to do. And by the way, this only would count if you're outside of the transit priority area. Inside of the TPA area, you still do not have to provide any parking. You would have to provide parking amenities, but you don't necessarily have to have any parking. That doesn't mean you shouldn't provide parking. It just means you don't have to provide parking. Parking is really not well incentivized within the city of San Diego. A parking space is just under 200 square feet, which could basically be 2 bedrooms. A developer is always going to be incentivized to build 2 bedrooms rather than 1 parking space. And you can do the math and figure out why, but basically the bedrooms increase the rent of the units drastically. The parking space increases the rent of the units very minimally. So what this change is saying is if you're outside of the TPA area, you will need to provide parking. This is really going to throttle down the size of these ADU bonus program projects if you're outside of the TPA zone, because parking is very expensive to provide. Developers are not incentivized to provide it, and underground or ground level parking with a structure above is just cost prohibitive in a lot of cases. So ultimately, is this good or bad for the city of San Diego? I suppose it depends on how affected you are by parking. Outside of the TPA zone, these are areas where there's not immediate access to mass transit, so it's probably a good idea to provide parking. Inside the TPA zone, you still do not have to provide any parking, so there's really no impact on those types of projects. But ultimately, it's probably a good idea. It would be nice to see the city incentivize off-street parking a little bit more than they do right now, but until they do that, we probably have to settle for these types of changes to the code right here. Item 19, ADU home density bonus, deed restriction agreement for affordable ADU homes. This is one, I'm not sure who got this through the city, but somebody did, and now they're making this change for all of us. It basically says the written agreement and deed of trust must be executed prior to the issuance of the first building permit for either an affordable ADU home or a bonus ADU home. So when you do this ADU bonus program, we have to coordinate with San Diego Housing Commission. There are fees that come from this. So we're providing affordable housing and they're giving us fees to file the paperwork. It is a little bit frustrating. It does seem a little backwards. If the city wants affordable housing, they should absorb these fees. But what this is basically saying is that all of these documents, contracts, and fees need to be executed and paid before they'll issue the permit. I think that makes sense. This is a reasonable one. Item 20, ADU home density bonus, affordable ADU home and accessible ADU home requirements. This is one that we already knew about. It wasn't in the municipal code. It should have been in the municipal code. It seems like they're going to add it to the municipal code. All this says is if you're going to use the ADU bonus program and you're going to provide affordable ADU homes or accessible homes, they need to be comparable in size and include at least the same number of bedrooms as the bonus ADU home. So the reason they're putting this in the code here is because without this context, developers will always select their smallest and least desirable units to be the affordable home. Financially, that just makes the most sense for the developer's profit, but this changes the way we will design projects because you're going to have to keep in mind the square footage of your units and the bedroom count of your units so that you make sure that your affordable units are comparable to the market rate units. Now, in general, still the affordable units are going to be probably the ground floor units, the ones with the closest street access or the ones closest to the alley. So the affordable units inevitably will still become the least desirable units, but this just clarifies that they're going to have to be comparable in square footage and bedroom count to the market rate units. I think ultimately this is a good clarification to add to the code. Item 21, ADU home density bonus, compliance. So somebody out there did not comply with the affordable regulations here. And that's what they're trying to do with this item number 21. So this clarifies that they're actually going to increase the fees if you do not follow suit with the affordable contract that you sign with the San Diego Housing Commission as part of this bonus program. It says the proposed amendment increases the penalty for violations of the deed restriction on affordable ADU homes permitted under the ADU density bonus program. And it says there's going to be a minimum payment of $10,000 per ADU home per month in addition to other fines. It seems like the previous fine was pretty minuscule, which actually may have incentivized a developer to kind of skirt the regulations and just pay the fee. But if they're going to implement this $10,000 fee, nobody's going to be skirting these regulations. This is a fair addition to the code. I'm glad they're clarifying this. It basically just makes sure that the developers follow suit with the agreement. I like this one. Item number 22, ADU home density bonus, community enhancement fee. You've heard that correct. There's another fee that's coming as part of this project. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you probably already know it's my opinion that if the city of San Diego is serious about adding housing, the first thing you do is you reduce the fees. And here we have a program that's aimed at adding housing and they're increasing the fees. I don't know how else to take this. You can let me know what you think. Basically what this is saying is applicants opting into the ADU home density bonus program are to pay an ADU home density bonus community enhancement fee for all affordable and bonus ADU homes under 750 square feet permitted through the program. Either citywide development impact fees or the ADU home density bonus community enhancement fees would be applied to these projects. So let me break this down a little bit. The state of California is being pretty explicit. They do not want impact fees applied to ADUs. So what the city of San Diego is doing is working around the state requirements. And they're saying if the ADU is 750 square feet or more, then they legally can add the impact fee. However, if the ADU is 750 square feet or less, they're not allowed to add the impact fee. So instead, they've made another fee called an ADU home density bonus community enhancement fee. So you're paying fees on top of fees on top of fees to build these projects. Developers are not making money hand over fist on these projects because of all these fees. The fees generally do not benefit the project or the occupants of the project. In most cases, I'm against these fees. This one I do not like because I think the ADU bonus program can still be worked in a way that's sensible, and adding more fees doesn't make it any more sensible. All it does is make it more cost prohibitive, and it's obstructing housing. So I do not like this change, and I really hope this one gets shot down before it makes it into the municipal code. Item number 24, sustainable development area definition clarification. Okay, so it looks like we're going to get another revision of the sustainable development area, which is the SDA overlay zone. The SDA overlay zone is 1 mile walking distance from mass transit to various project locations. If you're in this SDA zone, then you're going to qualify for the ADU bonus program. But the complaint here is that a lot of these areas where they're within that 1 mile, they actually do not have a sidewalk. So what this is going to do is it's going to restructure the SDA zone so that it only includes areas that have a pedestrian path of travel, which would include a sidewalk or some sort of other pathway. So ultimately, you're going to probably see a little bit of a constriction of the SDA zone. I wonder how this would apply if a homeowner selected to build out a new sidewalk or something like that. But ultimately, you're going to have a constriction of the SDA zone. And probably this is done mostly for ADA compliance because somebody in a wheelchair does not always have the ability to cross into the street or use the median on the side of the road to travel, whereas somebody who's not in a wheelchair could take that path. So this is probably an ADA-driven change. It's going to result in a slight restriction which would also result in a slight restriction of the opportunities for the ADU bonus program. Ultimately, this probably has no effect, but it's something to keep an eye out for if you're on the fringe of the SDA zone and you're planning an ADU bonus program. After reading through this entire document, there's one thing that really stood out to me here. It's the terminology. The city is no longer using the terms ADU and JADU, accessory dwelling unit and junior accessory dwelling unit. Consistently in this document, they're using the term ADU home and JADU home. So I'm not 100% sure why they're doing this, but it's consistent and pervasive through this entire document. Since its inception, the ADU code has been a moving target. This thing changes multiple times a year, and we get major updates every year or so.